What's up, guys? Straight from the chest. My name is Justin Groth, and I am your host on this personal development podcast geared towards igniting you in the dormant passion that lays within. Guys, if you're a new listener, welcome. And if you're an old veteran listener, thank you for sticking by my side. Thank you for giving me your listening ear. It truly does mean the most to me. Giving me your time, giving me your attention, that's huge to me, guys. So that's why I always predicate in the beginning of the podcast, because it really does mean everything to me. And guys, for those of you who are new, we like to do a segment on this podcast called We're Not Friends. And as the title entails, we're not friends. In short, if you don't tip at least 20% every single time you go out to eat. Every single time, no matter what. Every single time. I don't care if the waiter is horrible and the cook spits in your food. Like, you don't tip 20%, we're not friends. Now, let me give you a story. I'm out to dinner the other night with my girl, and we go to, it was P.F. Chang's. It was a cheap meal. Oh, man. We had to drive, right? Because we don't have the P.F. Chang's in this area. So we had to drive all the way to Thousand Oaks. And it was worth it. It was worth every single mile that we traveled. But P.F. Chang's, we get there. Anyways, we get there. We sit down. I see the bill from the person that was already there. And they had given the waitress, it was like $140 meal. Like, they spent $140. And they had given them $15 tip. And I'm thinking to myself, what are you even doing going out if you're that much of a prick? You can't give at least 20% to the waitress. Guys, this is how they make their living. And I'm not saying that I 100% agree with it, but at the same time, that's how they make their living. That's the way it is. That's how they're paid. And so, I mean, they get a little bit of money from their hourly wages, etc., but that's how they make their money. And so immediately when I sit down, I tell my girl, I say, oh, maybe we don't have a good waitress. Maybe the server in this section is not good because that person's giving them only like 10%. And so we get our waitress, and she was awesome. Same waitress in that section that was before, that had the other tip there, the other 10% tip there for her what the fuck? Anyways, so we think, man, that person just doesn't tip well. And I'm thinking to myself, like I said, why are you going out if you're tipping like shit? This is how a person makes their money. And like I said, even if they spit in your food, you still tip 20%. Now, most of you are not going to agree with that. I don't care. We're not friends if you don't tip 20%, period. That's how somebody makes their wages in that type of dynamic. What if your boss said, hey, man, you make $24 an hour, but you had one of those hours where you were just not as uppity, you weren't as productive, and so I'm going to cut it to $13 that hour. Wouldn't you feel like, what are you doing? Why would you do that? So why would you cut somebody else's wage just because you feel like, oh, they didn't get to your table right away, they didn't get you a Diet Coke when you wanted a Diet Coke? It doesn't matter. The fact is, you assume a certain responsibility if you're an integral human being when you go out to eat, because that person is providing a service to you that you can't provide to yourself. You can't go back to the kitchen and get your own food. You can't go and refill your drink. So you give the person according to what is standard. And what should be standard is not 10% or 15%. It should be 20%. That's what they deserve. 20% or higher. And if you don't agree with that, go work in the service industry. And I bet you think differently after the fact. And so as we're sitting there eating, we are blessed with a table adjacent to us that is got a little family, but no wife, a dad and two kids, older kids, like probably 22, 23. And the dad is just obscenely rude. He's just rude. He's asking, he doesn't get his way right away. with regards to like maybe getting a drink or something like that. And at one point the waitress is talking to us, and yeah, she was talking a little bit excessive, but you can clearly see that she wants somebody to talk to. She doesn't really have a lot of people to talk that she can talk with, probably, because she was airing a lot of stuff out. Stuff you don't just say to anybody right when you meet them. You know, you give it some time before you open up on this in that element. And she was not hiding anything. And you can tell that she was loving the platform that she had, that she was given to by my girl and I. And so we just let her talk, because we understand you love talking about yourself. And if you say you don't, you're lying. Everybody loves talking about themselves. It could be not to everybody, but to a select few people. You know, when you get that platform and that time, you go off. You go off because you're your biggest fan. You are your biggest fan. You love your name more than any other name in the book. And if you're saying, no, that's not me, Justin, fall back, because you're lying. You care more about your toothache than you do a plague in China that killed 1 million people. And if you say different, you're lying. How much more you think about your toothache than that plague in China that hit 1 million people? Be real, bro. Be real. So you care more about yourself. That's the reason why you love to talk about yourself when given the opportunity to certain people. Some people are just more open with that. Some people love talking to everybody and they don't care about opening their book up to everybody. Some people are just more private. But when given the opportunity, they're going to unleash. And that's what this girl was doing. And we let her do it. We let her do it because we understand. And at the same time, this schmuck in the back on the other table was being like, you could just tell he was getting uppity. So she went over to him and he finally was like, he threw his hands up, all dramatic, like a girl, just all dramatic. Finally. And he actually says that to her. What is she supposed to do? I mean, yeah, was she being irresponsible with her time? Maybe a little bit, but who cares? You can't wait 37 seconds. You can, dude. Just relax. And at the same time, he's not being a good example to his kids. He's being rude with comments. She asks him how the food is tasting. He says, okay, as he's stuffing it through his fat mouth. Like, come on, dude. And by the way, he wasn't overweight and just saying fat mouth to, illustrate how this guy was just like a human garbage disposal, inhaling the PF Chang's. Oh yeah, but it's okay. So it's just ridiculous on top of ridiculous. And finally, my girl actually turns to him, and I'm in the bathroom. She tells me this. She turns to him as he says this rude comment to the waitress, like, it's okay, the food's okay. She turns to him and just glares at him. And he looks up and he sees her and he knows, a man knows what kind of eye a woman is given. Without them even having exchanged words, they know. They know what that woman is saying through the eyes of her soul. He knows. And he knew that she was disgusted with his actions, disgusted with his verbal communication. She was disgusted. And read it all over her eyes. And he's seeing this. And he looks up and he sees this in my girl's eyes. And then he just frowns. And he looks down, as he should, as you should. You're raising 2 kids. Don't be a piece of shit to people that serve you. Never, 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 ever, 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 ever. Nobody deserves that. And your kids don't deserve for that to be the influence that they're following. Or the example, much less. Pull your shoulders back. Be a man. And be polite and courteous to people that are serving you. Especially for your daughter's sake. You don't want your daughter to think that's how a man treats a woman. So anyways, we're definitely not friends. And if anything, we're throwing blows if that's you. I have a visceral hatred for that in people. That needs to be reconstructed within you if that's who you are. And if you have a problem with that, please, 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 please interact with me. Please. You need to change. So, that's that. Guys, in my life, I have many routines. I think, if anything, my entire life is one big routine on autopilot. And maybe most of you feel that same way. It's just on autopilot. I get up, I have a routine that I do in the morning. I follow a routine in my gym. I follow a routine or a discipline in my own training. Just all routines, right? And I even get to the point where I follow a routine in my prayer. And that is something that if you're an avid prayer, or you do anything in life that's routine based, you can get very drowned in it. You can drown in it. Not become drowned. No, yes, you can drown in your routine, and it starts to manifest as something that becomes diluted in authenticity. And I know I talk about it a lot, but it's because it's necessary to present this to you. Authenticity is going to become diluted when it's ordained by a routine. And I'm not saying all routines are like this, but things that are supposed to be meaningful, like prayer, like your relationship with God, that is meant to be meaningful. It's not meant to be orchestrated and funded by a routine of sorts in your brain. It needs to be authentic. And sometimes authenticity comes by way of you stuttering, or not knowing what to say, or not knowing how to transition this sentence into this sentence. Or sometimes it comes in the sense of being bold and yelling and being really passionate and being frustrated. And that's what God wants from us. He wants that from us. Because he knows that's us being true and authentic in our natural state. It's not anything for somebody to put on. It's nothing. It's nothing for you to be polished. And if you want polish, just go on Instagram and look at people's feeds. That's all the polished of their life. Those are all the polished moments of their life. And then filtered on top of that, and then tri-filtered on top of that. It's easy to get polished. It's easy to create. It's easy. It's harder to document. It's harder to just be authentic with the documentation and not care what it looks like. And that's what God is trying to tell you to bring to him. Not your highlight polished reel that's tri-filtered back to back. He wants you to bring the raw, unedited version of you. And if you consistently breathe a routine, and I know personally in my life, this is what I do, this is what I would do, and this is what I know I need to correct it. When I follow a prayer message that is basically me praying things for good measure's sake. Like if I don't pray it, maybe some of you can formalize with this, or familiarize with this. But it's like when you say something, because if you don't pray about it, it's not going to get done. Like God's not going to deliver it. Like God doesn't already know what you're trying to say, or what you're thinking, or what you're breathing, or what's manifesting within you, that you need to say it for him to actually, oh yeah, that's right, I remember. I'm going to do that for you, dude. That's not how it works. He already knows. And so you praying on the good measure, quote unquote, dynamic only dilutes your authenticity and actually removes you further from God, from the relationship and presence of God, because now you're just going off of an itinerary of what to say, what to pray for. And maybe you're not there. Maybe that's not you. Maybe you don't have a routine in prayer. If that's you, I applaud you, because the worst thing I feel you can have a routine in is prayer. Not the act of segregating time in the day to pray, but the act of saying the same things routinely through a prayer message. That becomes dilution of your actual authenticity. And if you don't believe me, just think of things I got to pray about, go through them, And do that 12 days in a row. Say the same 17 things 12 days in a row and tell me you're not just saying things to say things with no emotion associated with them. Because that's what will begin to happen. The emotion will begin to dilute and you're just saying things for quote unquote good measure. And that's not what praying, aka a relationship, is constructed on with God. And I think that I can overcome that. I think that, oh no, but I need to tell him these things. It's good to pray. It's good. And it is, but you're missing the point. I'm missing the point of the prayer. The prayer is to come to more in alignment with God. It's there to develop more of a relationship with you and him. It's there so he can talk to you through your negatives. He already knows all your shits. He knows all your mess ups. And he's there to deliver you, but you gotta come to the table with authenticity. You gotta come to the table with your passion. You can't shield those things. And that's what I'm saying. If you come to the table with that type of preface, he'll deliver you because he knows what it means to be a human. He sent his son for us. He knows what it means. He knows how you're feeling. He already knows what you're thinking. He knows more than you know about yourself. You don't believe me? Look in the Bible. It says that he knows the hairs on our head, every single hair on our head. Do you know how many hairs you have on your head? I don't. I couldn't even guess that. He knows your thoughts, man. He knows everything. So why would you think you can masquerade around some type of thought or emotion that you're, just because you're not voicing, he doesn't know, but he knows about it. So why don't you bring it to the table? And not every prayer needs to look the same. I'm learning this. You need to let go because really you're not in control anyways. None of us are. And I'm not saying deviate from praying. Don't do that. I'm saying get more real with your prayer because he can handle it. And that's what I'm learning. I'm learning this. It's transition, but I'm learning it. And I slowly start to come into a new routine of prayer, and then I have to wake up. I have to wake up. I have to slap myself because if I continuously function in this inauthentic routine of good measure prayer, it's not doing anything for me except for making me feel like I'm completed after my prayer. I don't want to feel completed. I want to feel invigorated. I want to feel faith-filled. I want to feel full. And that doesn't happen when you just follow an itinerary basis for prayer. Sometimes your prayers are going to be 17 minutes. Sometimes they're going to be 34 minutes. Sometimes they're going to be 3. It doesn't matter. What matters is that you bring your heart to God. What matters is that you lay your authenticity on the table. And guys, it's the same thing when you deliver a message to somebody in front of you. What matters is that you leave authenticity on the table. That's the card that you put on the table first. Vulnerability, maybe you predicate a little bit on frustration and passion, and you intertwine all those elements together. That is going to be a transferable and unequivocal language to people that they can understand. But you leave those things on the table? Or I'm sorry, you don't leave those things on the table? I'm telling you, people won't be able to understand what you're saying. They won't be able to empathize with you. They won't be able to familiarize with you. And if you can't have somebody familiarize with you, you've lost them. If you can't familiarize with all of the negative, unpolished elements of your life and bring them to God, he can't do his best work in you. The goal is for you not to become more polished. The goal is for you to bring your unpolished nature and elements to God and have him correct them. That's how you come into your full light. That's how you develop your purpose. That's how you leave your legacy. You see how one complements the other? It's not just one and that's it. Much like it's not you that's in control. If you think you're in control, it's your ego that's taking a front seat and playing pilot here. The problem with that is that when calamity hits, when threats and disasters come your way, because they will, when they do, your ego flees. Because it's weak and it's frail. That's why you need something bigger, someone bigger. That's why I don't know what you're doing with your life if you don't believe in God. I just don't know. I just don't. And if you can make it, which you can't, but if you think you can make it and you've made it for a period of time, I mean, still not hats off, because you've done it the hard way and you're not blessed as a byproduct. You're still not far along. The only thing that I would have in question is who's blessing you. I still believe God's blessing you even if you're detached from him, but he can't bless you the way that he wants, which is far more than you could produce on your own. And it's a realm and it's a trajectory that you would be brought to that you can never even manifest in a thought, much less the impact you would have on the people around you. But still think you're in control. Still think you got this. The only thing that you have control over is your ego. And you need to slap your ego in the face sometimes. And you need to make it take the back seat like it deserves. The ego should never ride shotgun. Ever, 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 ever. Like I said, it's the first one to bail when real life calamity hits. You don't want that to be the case. Because it's going to come. And when it comes, you need something bigger, something stronger to protect you and to guide you and to give you hope and faith continuously. But it's up to you. It's your choice. The routine that we get stuck in can have an associative effect with our ego. If we're saying things just to say things, we think that if we don't, then God can't do a movement in that position, right? He can't do a movement in that area. We're still trying to stay in control in that regard. Does that make sense? We're still trying to stay in control by saying things, thinking that it's by our own voice, by our own declaration, and is the only way that these things are going to come to fruition. Like God doesn't already understand. Like God doesn't already have a plan for you. Like God doesn't already have the right people lined up for you to be able to extend blessings and opportunities your way that would surpass anything you ever thought of over your own life. Over your own life. But you get in a state of mind thinking, I need to do this and say this and be this way, and you become in control. And you start to dilute the one that gave you the talent in the first place and dilute his voice. Now it's bleeding into your prayer. It's bleeding into the way that you function in life. Your routine is now becoming reckless. Your routine is becoming reckless. Stand back a little bit and be able to expose and exploit some of the things that aren't so perfect in your life and tell him about them, because he's already understood it. He already knows, and he's already found out a map to get you where you need to be. Not where you want to be, where you need to be. Those are two different destinations. But I promise you, the place where you need to be is the most fulfilling place. And the only reason why you don't want to be there is because you're so stuck in the want right now, because that's the season of your life that you're in, and you can't see past that season. But it's not where you need to be. It's not where you're going to be. It's because where you want to be is not predicated on where you need to be. Where you need to be is your destiny, your legacy. And the only one that knows how to get you there is God. So stop worrying about shit and start relying a little bit on him and fall back just a tad. Take your ego out of the pilot seat and put God in the pilot seat instead.